Good morning. How are you? You might want to grab a tray. Okay, so last week we did models. I would like to hear everyone's experience from last week, how they felt it went. Personally, and both like what you saw of your coworkers.
I wasn't concentrating on my
Margaret had a
coworkers.
lot of people.
Yeah,
Right?
she did.
She was booked and busy.
And she brought a lot of people.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
was
and
awesome.
I was so happy because I was on time. So only like maybe 15 minutes the delay for Margaret,
Yeah.
the last one.
Yeah, and you did a foil.
Yeah, and on top of that, because she wanted, like we thought that it's gonna be like pump up the colors, so few extra foils. That's why it took me extra 15 minutes.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought people. You brought extra people, which was perfect.
More than enough.
Yeah. For
Because
Eliza too.
people don't show.
Oh, I
people
had
don't
more
show,
people. Yeah.
So that's
She already got me a model for foils.
Good.
All done.
Yeah.
Good. So that was great. So bringing people, getting the experience, being on time, that was awesome. How about for you, Evelyn?
For me, I would say my mom did have a lot of hair, so I kind of like had to work on like saturating, which I thought I did fine, but I put a little bit on here, like I focused more on, putting a little bit less, but also doing things like sections, and then I found out that I still had a lot of color left, so I just started putting more. So I think I did okay, just that I could have done better here because on one quadrant her growth was too far, and I feel like I didn't really go far enough.
Yes.
And then the other I did, so she did like it in the end. So,
It was beautiful.
yeah.
Her hair color was gorgeous.
Yeah.
So focusing on saturation and practice. So,
Did you do a toner in her?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
well, so I would call that more of a gloss or a glaze because a toner would be after bleach.
I know, ever since you said that, I've been like trying to change.
I know
my
it's
color.
hard, but I want to like kind of clarify for everyone so that we keep using the
You
same
did a
term.
gloss?
Okay. So because we didn't bleach her hair, we were refreshing, and also it's the first time we colored her root, and she was coloring her own hair, so making sure that everything looked like a blend. When you do a first time root on someone, you're often going to do a gloss. We waited to do the gloss so that we could see the root and what she had before and really see if we were happy with the blend or if we needed to make adjustments. Cool. How about for you, sir?
Doing research and just like working on like timing and stuff like that. Saturation, so like looking at some areas like so like color stuff or everything is like saturated.
Yeah.
And then I have to look at the lights and stuff too.
Oh, yeah, we put little lights. I forgot about that. That's right. Awesome.
Thank you.
So saturation, which is what you both brought up, right? Saturation can be fixed if you check it yourself. You can avoid that mistake by going back in the remember we talked about cross checking, going in the opposite direction and making sure that you didn't miss anything. It's funny because this week I had a holiday right here in the back with one of my guests, and I was like, oh, you teach it, but you didn't, like you preach it, but you don't do it. And I was like annoyed with myself because I had like one little gray spot, like wait, like thankfully she would see it, but anyway, so we can avoid that mistake for ourselves just by checking. So when you're doing models, I want you to do that check first and then ask me to check. In the sense of like, I'm really just seeing, can you check yourself? Can you apply it? Can you avoid mishaps on your own? Essentially, that's what we want to get to. How about for you, my dear?
I think I did okay. I think I really struggle with the complication part. And like I don't know, that's I think my saturation was good. I think my timing was okay. I had a haircut, and her haircut was like, she cut her own hair, always cut her own hair. So I'm like pulling pieces, and then they wouldn't match, so I wouldn't touch them. You know, I don't know if you saw it, like her hair was. So
Yeah, I think she was cutting the front, like from, well, obviously she's cutting from the front,
she
but I
said she
think.
put it in a ponytail, and she like went over, and she did it on
That's
YouTube.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I love YouTube.
I was like, oh my gosh, but some of it here was not the same. Here, the
Yeah, they teach on the internet how to cut
I did
yourself,
one length on
your
her.
hair. Yeah, and she did it.
And my first one, she had a lot of hair. The one that was supposed to go to do it. But definitely just my complication.
So, for me, I felt like Monday was a huge victory for many reasons. So, one, everyone had a human. I've had model days where we're still working
I
on a
had
doll
3.
head. So, yes. So that was like a huge victory that I mean, I told my mother to go back home. That's how many models we had. I was like, sorry, Mom, you can't come today, which is a good problem. I mean, so I am actually going to schedule her next week for 1 o'clock. So I would like one of you two to stay next week and do it at 1 o'clock for the retouch.
Monday? Oh. It's okay, it's okay.
I actually also did Friday before I left work. Brenda asked me to do her retouch, so I did it.
Oh, good. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I want you guys to do more.
Yeah.
So you two did several models. I've only seen you two do one model. So either one of you can decide, or you can pair up and each do a half of her head. But I'm going to schedule her Monday at 1 o'clock at the end of class for you guys to do it, if you can stay. Or you see me after class. But I want you to, and everyone, to be having models at 1 o'clock. We have 2 additional hours. I'd like you here till 3 with models, because the progress you made on Monday was leaps and bounds. A couple of reasons. Your 6 steps are practiced, right? So you're talking about product, you're talking about educating the guests, you're talking about the next time you're gonna see them. You can't do that on her. So I really want you to be doing more models. And 9 to 10 is more of a haircut space or a blow dry space. Do you know what I mean? If we put a color on, then we leave it, then we have to interrupt class to wash it out. So there's not time at 9 o'clock in the morning. But 1 to 3, that's a 2-hour window. And if you need me to help you finish the blow dry to get out on time, I can do that. Whatever we need to do to get that done. But there's really space for 1 model per person. You don't want to double book yourself because we only have 2 hours. But I'd really like to see that. So you have the 10th and the 17th, and then we're doing models on the 24th for foils. But the 10th and the 17th, if you can find a retouch, in the meantime, that would be great. So the fact that everyone had models was huge victories. The fact that everyone knew, I'm going to do this consultation myself. I know what questions I'm going to ask. Maybe you got to the back room and didn't know what to put in the bowl, but you already were thinking, what do I need before I even decide what I'm going to do?
A lot of people got annoyed with like the two, they wanted to be lighter. Like they wanted to be lighter. And then that's when you were like, okay, well,
Yes,
that's the
so
only way.
if they want to be lighter, you have to remove color or you have to slowly highlight and make them lighter. There's no like magic fix for this. And so you guys knew those answers and maybe we couldn't do them that day, but you already knew the answers. So I was happy about that as well. And it's knowing that today is a retouch class. So this is what we can do for you, but here's what you can do in the future. Makes sense? The other victory that I saw was when you took multiple guests, your timing was like impeccable because even though you couldn't shampoo, which I would never expect you to be able to do that when you're double booked like that, you weren't like hours behind, so that was great. And then you guys were like comfortable behind the chair. There was questions and you got nervous at times, but for the most part, there was a level of comfortability that showed confidence. And that's why I want to continue to do those models, so that when you have a paying guest, it's like a no-brainer. Make sense? So, foiling is a little different because foiling is not the same on everyone. So we have 2 foiling classes and then we do our models. So foiling today and foiling on next week, and then we're taking foiling models. The thing I'm thinking about Margaret and Olga are they have roots.
Yeah.
And I think what I want to do is put their root on and then wash it out and then put their foils on. Because doing a root and foil at the same time is not a good way to practice foils. That's like the next step of foiling. Does that make sense? Because you have that color sloshing around. So for them, when they come in, we already have their formula. You're gonna take them back, put their root on, wash it out, power dry, and then we're gonna do their foils. If you have foil models, you want them to not have a root if possible. But if they have one, we have to do the same thing, because you don't, I want you to work on securing your foils and not worrying about pushing color into your foil, and then that is a huge mess. And I will say that probably 10 years ago, that's how everyone did it. You painted the root, then you washed that out, then you did the foils. It's in the last 10 years that we've started to do those services together, especially with color melting and everything else. So first we're gonna work on those foils, then we'll work on putting them with color. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So today's class is about how to put a foil in and some basic sectioning. Because first we have to get our foils on the head successfully before we can talk about all the arrays of ways to put them in, right? So today's goal is that you can put your foils in, have a plan for your foils, and you can practice those foils until they're tight and neat and to the scalp and no slipping and all those things. And then next class we'll talk about different placements. So I am going to go over the different ways to place them, but we're not really going to get into placements. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So there are 3 ways to place the lines of color. That's what we're doing. We're putting streaks of color in the hair. You can place them vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. For those of you that have done cutting class, isn't that how we cut? Okay, so when we're talking about placements, vertical, horizontal, and diagonal, if you don't know what to do, match the haircut. If you put the lines of color in the lines the same way that the haircut is, they will complement each other. Does that make sense? So, and you need to know what each line of color will do. A vertical line, whether weaved or sliced, is going to fall like a stripe. If you don't want stripes of color, you probably shouldn't place it on a straight line. Make sense? Even if you weave it, if I weave the hair like this, when that hair falls down, it just falls like a line. Okay? In a horizontal, the hair still all falls to one point, but if you weave it, it is softer. If you slice this on a horizontal, it falls like a wall of color. So a horizontal slice is going to be used more in block coloring, not necessarily pieces of color. Does that make sense? So in a horizontal, if it all falls to one point, the goal with your highlights is that they touch the bottom of the hair. You don't want to place a foil and then you go and you stop and there's still like layers, so then the color stops here and there's streaks here and nothing here. It's going to look like it's broken off. It generally happens in the back more than the sides because there's all this hair down here, right, that isn't accounted for on the sides. But whenever you're placing, if this is where I'm stopping, if I'm doing a partial, and this is where I'm stopping my foils, and I'm not going to place any down here, I need to make sure that the bottom foil that I place touches the bottom of the haircut. If it doesn't touch the bottom of the haircut, then the color streak is going to stop wherever the bottom of that foil stops. Does that make sense what I'm saying? That's more a problem with layers or like a wedge. If they have a stack in the back, you don't want it to fall under the weight line. If it falls under the weight line, it looks like pokes of like spotted underneath there instead of soft streaks. And lastly is diagonal. Diagonal is the most commonly used because it's softer, it blends better, and it goes with most haircuts because it lives between a horizontal and a diagonal. Between a horizontal and a vertical. Does that make sense? So we're going to practice horizontal today because it's the easiest to place. And then once you've mastered how to place your foil, next week when you come back, we're going to work in verticals, horizontals, and diagonals, and we're going to combine them all. But today, we're going to live on the horizontal because that's the best way to defy gravity and get your foil as neat and as tight as possible. I want you to have a robotic method to placing your foil to the point where it doesn't matter what you're speaking, you know exactly how to get that in there, and that's going to be where your timing's going to come into play. Often foils, people take a really long time. They think too much. You think too much. Okay? You're going to create a plan just like the haircut. You're going to section it out, and then if your foils are like, bam, I put it in, bam, I put it in, that comes from practice. But what I want to not see, this is where a place we need to get to. What I want to not see is this. This is what I see people do. That's what I see. Weave after weave after weave after. No. You can't weave this one section 10 times when you're on a real person. So today, I want you to perfect that. And if it's not precise every time today, then you need to place a million foils before you come back to me next week. That is going to be your homework. Those foils have to be in this week in a place where you can get them in under a minute of foil. Each foil needs to be under a minute. And if you all you do is place a section of foils, this is where your skills and drills are really going to be important this week. Okay? I'm going to give you all the tips to do that, and I'm going to work with you and say, don't do that, nope, stop that, like stop petting her. You know, we just pet the section like, is this the right one? Anyway, so we can use one of two sectionings. We can do a standard mohawk, or we can go away from a standard mohawk. Which would you prefer? It does not matter to me. I feel like you all probably know a standard mohawk, so doing something different might give you a start in thinking outside of the box. Are we okay with that? Okay, so standard mohawk section is like all the way down the center, right? And you go front to back. If we step away from it, this is not scaled drawing. It's not even a straight line, but I did this 3 times, and this is the best I got. You're gonna divide the head down the middle into 4 panels, just like hair cutting. The only thing you're gonna take out is the bang area. The reason you're gonna take the bang area out is because you have this like rounded, so it's just the recession to the recession back to the curve of the head. Does that make sense? And then you're just going to go up one side and up the other horizontally. So we're actually going to do the front first, and we'll do the back second. When you foil, that's not how I want you to foil, but placing foil down here in this portion of the head, feel the back of your head. Like place your hand like these 4 fingers, right? Do you feel the dip in those 4 fingers? Trying to get a foil here as opposed to here is so much harder.
Just look down.
Yeah, you're like, you can't push their head down far enough. It's like, get down there, because you're working in this, and so the gravity makes it harder, the space makes it harder because you're trying to get into a space like
I've done
this.
that in school. I'll be like this.
So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that you can do down here, but we don't foil this area as much as we foil everywhere else. A partial is not there, and you're going to do partials more than you do fulls. Okay, so we're going to focus on the areas that are easier to place foil till you master how to foil, and then we'll work on those harder areas. Yes? Okay, so what I'm going to do, what questions do you have about today? I want you hands and hair as much as possible. I would like to see you place as many foils as possible today. So I'm going to section her like this. You're going to go section her once you see it here, because that's not a real picture. I don't think it's a good visual. So I'm going to section her. Then you're going to go section her. Then you're going to come back. I'm going to place 2 foils. You're going to place foils. And then you're going to come back and see me do it again. We're going to be foiling all day till your fingers are bleeding. Well, maybe not bleeding, but you get the idea. So I'm going to start by dividing her down the middle. Oh, I did want to talk about tools. Clips, when I am foiling, I live in this world. These flatter, skinnier clips. I don't use alligator clips. The reason I don't use alligator clips is because when I'm laying the hair above a foil or below a foil, I want that hair to be flat. If I'm clipping a foil out of my way, I don't want the teeth of it to go into. I want it to be like a skinny, flat. Does that make sense? So those are the tools that I use. There's also a difference in combs. Some people swear by a longer comb, a longer tail comb. I can't work with this because I poke the guest. Still working with this still on. But it's a tool, and some people love it. So today I want you to find the tools that you need for this project, right? And then know what tools work best for you, and then master placing a foil. That's the goal of today. Okay, back to where I was, sorry. This hair is not cooperative because it's like got little baby hairs on this doll that were sewn in some. I don't know if you can see them, but. So I may use alligator clips for like the big sectioning, but not for my when I'm foiling. Okay, so this section, when I'm coming in here, is not like hair cutting. I'm not gonna like go right here and then have this tiny little section. I want to make the most out of my foil. So I'm gonna have a wider section. Take your fingers up like this. A rule of thumb in the beginning is to have your section this big. It helps you to place your foil, fold your foil, not pinch your sides. So your section size should be that big. So when you come here, that's how big your size is going to be. So I want to make sure you're not taking this tiny little bit. Does that make sense? So you're just going to take this straight up. And then you see how at the front, it gets too wide for that. So as you move to the top, you're going to take out what's wider than your 2 fingers. And that's how you're going to section this.
And then do the front like last, like if you want it to be brighter in the front.
As far as,
Or
this is just sectioning. This is just sectioning. That's how you determine how that big that side is. And then now the thing with foiling is neat, clean sections are everything. Because if your line isn't neat, then you're pulling a hair from somewhere else and you're placing it into your foil. Then you go to section and weave the next one, and it's like catching. It's because you're pulling hair into foil, tying it off in the foil, and then you need that hair somewhere else because it wasn't like a neat space. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Divide this side. If you have bangs on your doll head, you are going to struggle, like actual bangs. Does anybody have that? How short are they? Okay, so you may have to just make those your front section and ignore them for now, because I want you to not get frustrated foiling short hair until you master foiling, like placing the foil, because that's a frustrating thing, is just having these little short pieces. And there's a certain length that you just cannot foil because one, it's going to slip out, and two, it's going to look spotted. So if you have really short hair, you can't foil it anyway. Have you ever seen like the old cap that they used to do where they pull it out? If it's really short and you even if you use that, it looked like polka dots. Okay. Oh, I have to section out this front. Okay, so this is your sectioning that you're going to do on your girl. All right, Siri. You tell everybody his messages. So go ahead and go to your doll and section your doll like this. And you can peek at this one if you need to see. Off the top, and it should be see-through. That way when I place my foil, it's going to be nice and close to the scalp. You're going to lift the hair up when you do that. And you want the fold to go on the outside of the foil packet, so that if it slips, you can put your comb back in there and budge it back in. Okay? So you're going to place that foil, and when you take the comb out, you're going to follow the shape of the head. If you're on a round, you're not going to lift. That's how it keeps it tight. And see how tight that hair is right now? Then you're going to take and you're going to place your brush here. I haven't moved any like pressure on that foil. I'm going to move my fingers here. And I'm going to work this product until it's stuck. When I come under here, the pressure in your hand, it looks like this in a dramatic form. But when you pull down, your hand is moving up a little so that the pressure of the brush isn't pulling the foil out. You're not holding that foil in place because it will just crumple and pull away from the scalp. So you're going to place your hand underneath flat, and you're going to have like a push-pull effect so that your hand is supporting the gravity. I'm going to take that brush that I just used. I'm not going to reload a big glob. I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to work my product to the scalp. If you do need more product, take a tiny little bit on the edge, place it here, and work it up. What you want to avoid is sticking a full loaded brush right at the top, because what do we know about lightener? It doesn't necessarily slips, it what? It rises, it swells. So when it gets bigger, right, and like foamy, like you've seen in a bowl before, it's gonna push out and bleed. Now, the other reason foils will slip is when you go to fold them. There's no, like you can fold them in half or you can fold them in thirds. I fold them in thirds for size purposes, so they're not flopping and hanging. When you go to fold them, you wanna push up to fold. You see how gentle that was? Then you're gonna push up to fold. You wanna avoid like taking the comb and sliding because you're moving product around. And you just want to take the corners and hold them. So I'm going to do that again, and then you're going to go.
What if you brush? You know how when you get to the root, you brush it up. Sometimes
Brush it up instead of down, you mean? I feel like brushing up is. I think when I'm doing more of a soft blend and I'm not doing to the root, that's when I will go up. Like a teasy light or something. So I'm going to skim off the top. I'm going to pull the hair all the way up. I'm going to hold the foil and fold down so my foil is at the back. Place my foil, pull down. Tap. If there's tails, you want to, what you want to avoid if there's long hair is spaghettiing. You know what I mean? Like trolling around like spaghetti. You want to lay it up, lay it down, because if you spaghetti knot it, it tends to get knotted in there when it's swelling with the bleach, and then it's doing damage. So once you have that bottom, work your way up. The other key would be on this, just like with color, is saturation. We can't really check your saturation until you use bleach. And when you use bleach, if you open your foil and it's spotty, you didn't have enough saturation. But that's how we can really check it. If you use too much conditioner, it starts to get heavy and your foil will slip out. So right now I just want to see that you have coverage on all the hair and that you are doing it properly, and we'll work on saturation moving forward. So I'm going to show you what happens when you use too much pressure. If you pull down, do you see how it's already sliding away? So it's like these 3 fingers pushing up, not pulling down. So it looks more like, you see the difference from here to there? Don't pull down. Because this one would bleed or not be activated. Any questions? All right, one more? Sure. This one I'm not going to talk through.
I like a lot of them, but most of the things get fuller in a pack, and it's just not worth it.
No.
And this time we got the variety pack. Those are it. Let's try some different flavors this time and see.
Costco has a pack of those right now. I saw them yesterday.
Yeah. I thought about getting this Costco membership. They just keep talking about it. I'm like, I don't know.
I love Costco. They're talking about building another one
Yeah?
closer to you. Because that one in Naples is so crazy.
Yeah. I think there's one in there, right?
They're talking about somewhere near Logan Crossing or something like that. Kind of out that way. Yeah, I mean,
Last
we live
little
right
tip.
next to it.
Yeah.
So it's
When you fold your sides, they need to be at least at your sectioning. Because if you fold them in too small, you see how I pulled the corner out? So that right there is either going to bleed or it's going to be like a rooted spot, depending on how much product you put in. Okay. About the foils you place.
Next one.
Getting better, getting
Getting
better,
better.
getting better. I will say this. All of you are at different spots in your foiling, but they all require you to do it. So right now, before we even do any more practicing today, I want you to pick an amount of time from now until next Monday that you're committing to just putting foil in. So all of you are at different levels. I can't tell you how much time you think you need, but next week I want to do 2 full heads in our class so that you can learn 2 placements that are very basic placements, but that you have them and you know how to recreate them. But we can't focus on that if we can't get the foils in. So thinking about your schedule this week and what you're working, do you have an hour to dedicate to this? Do you have 2 hours to dedicate to this? How much time are you personally going to dedicate to just doing this over and over and over again so that we can do 2 heads of foils next week? And then the following week you have to do a head of foils on a person, whether it's a half head or whatever, but we have to get them in a timely manner. Next week we're doing 2 heads on a doll.
Okay.
The following week you have to be able to then translate into a real human where you're going to be putting it on them and they're talking and you're mixing and you're using real lightener and right? So that's only 2 weeks away. So this week I need a commitment. So what does that look like for you? I want you to write that number down and I want you to write when you're going to do it this week. If you're working 5 days this week, when are you committing that time? And I want you to put it on your paper right now because without a real time in your schedule, it's not going to happen.
I'm gonna just do it every day. I'll be like, I need to practice. They'll probably if I don't have class.
Okay, so how many hours do you think you need to do it? Because you're in school for like 20. You don't need to dedicate those 20 hours to it, but giving yourself a certain...
Maybe like an hour a night.
Okay,
Yeah.
write that down. And then if tonight you don't get to do it, or Tuesday night you don't get to do it, then you have to do more Wednesday. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you have class.
Yeah. Usually they give me like color and then like what my plan is, okay, like while my client is processing, I'll just foil right next to her. Instead usually I'll talk or I'll go eat or whatever.
I see.
I'll just foil while she's processing.
So you're gonna do...
I'm off tomorrow.
So you're gonna do 2 hours tomorrow.
Since I'm gonna be out there, so this week.
Take a break and then do
Yeah.
an hour later. Okay, so perfect. That's... Okay. How about you?
Well, since I'm working with Brenda, I feel like I get a little bit of time between. She gets a lot of colors, so I can do it while she's doing the color
Okay,
processing.
make sure you check with her.
Yeah.
Make sure you check in with her before you do it on the clock because people get pissed off at me that I assign something.
Oh.
If that's not doable, what other time do you have?
Probably in the morning, most likely in the morning, then the afternoon.
Okay.
I have Wednesday because I'm off,
Mm-hmm.
3 hours probably,
Okay.
and Sunday 3 hours
Okay.
because I'm working 4 days.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So.
Saturday too when I finish earlier.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going up on this side with a weave. I'm going to demo a weave. You're going to move to the other side and do a weave. But I'm just going to keep going right here instead of moving to that other side. So I want you to really focus on the spacing in between, and I want you to put more foil in this section. So I want you to do a heavy foil. I want them close, 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 close. So I'm going to do that here. And we're going to do a mini micro weave. Okay? So it's going to be tiny little pieces. When using a micro weave, you're not going to see streaks. You're actually going to make the hair look lighter. There's going to be dimension because they're still light and dark. But if you use a mini micro weave, it's not visible lines of dimension. It's soft lightness. So if it's someone who says, I really want to go lighter, and you're doing their root, that's one way to make it appear lighter without making bold dimension. Okay? So now we're just practicing spacing, but you could do this, a micro weave, and space it out too. It's just in this case, we're going to put them really close so you can make the most out of this section. Does that make sense? So you're still going to skim off the top, but when you're doing a weave, there's 2 ways to do it. You can bounce, or you can do circles. Either way, you'll pick up the hair. Which one works best for you is up to you. The key is that if you're bouncing, that you're not digging, you're bouncing. When you do this, it has to be consistent as you move across your weave and up and down movement. That's how you get even spacing. Or if you're doing circles, that it's an even movement. Some people find the circles easier. It's up to you. I have no preference. But something to note if you pick up the first piece of your weave every single time on this side, when you stand on the other side, your comb comes from the back. And you need to make sure that you pick up the end piece on this side, because when they pull their hair back, that hairline would be bright over here and dark over here. Does that make sense? So whether you do it or you don't do it, whatever you do, they have to match. Okay, so if you want to get up and see, you place this foil with a microweave by all means. So you're going to slice just like you did, and then you're going to now the doll, do you see how thin it is over here? Like she's missing hair right here. So that's going to be different than a client. Do you see how like it's thinner sewn in right there than it is there? Mm-hmm. So don't stress yourself. Skim it and then practice it and then move on until the motion feels good. Then we'll work on what it looks like inside the foil. And then the placement of the foil is no different. Some of you I noticed are like rolling the foil up and cupping it like this. You want to avoid that. The more you touch the foil or crinkle the foil, the softer it gets, the more it's going to slide out. So the less touching you do, the better. Also, using the teeth of your comb to fold, you're going to get an easier crease than the tail. And I noticed some of you struggling to put these sides in. So place your hand behind. On one side you're going to use your thumb, on the other side you use your fingers. And you'll get a nice even fold. Okay, so this is how close we're going to put them.
And I have a quick question.
Yep.
When you foil the last piece of the foil, does it matter if there's like a small, like a cavern? You understand, like when you move it around to the other side, you can still see there's a little bit.
You're talking about if I flip it up?
Yeah. Like
Yes.
see?
Yes, that is fine. I mean, it's okay. You don't want a big, like you don't want the back of the foil to be here and the front of the foil to be here. But if it's a little off, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, as close as possible is going to be ideal. On the doll head, it's a little different.
Oh, okay.
And you'll see when we do our models, it's totally different. So do you see how close that is to a slice, but not? And it's such a small amount of hair that you really have to, you see how I like kind of pulled it and pinched it? The more tension you have on that hair, the better it's going to lay on the foil. So I'm going to place another one so that you can see that placement, like closeness. So you're probably going to have like 10 foils in that section at least. It'll be at least double what you have on the other side. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
As you move up, the section sometimes gets a little wider than the ear. As long as it's not wider than your 2 fingers, it's fine. What questions do you have? None? Have at it.